We all know about the American Revolution, the War of the British and the Colonies, how George Washington crossed the Delaware, Thomas Paine's book about common sense, King George displeased about people wasting his tea, and the British eventually lost the war, resulting with a peace treaty not in the colonies nor in Britain, but in France. However, there were many more characters in the story besides the colonies and England. First off, the Adams family. Samuel Adams, the oldest, was the American patriot who organized the Boston Sons of Liberty. He was also conceived to the Boston Committee of Correspondence and led the Boston Tea Party. From 1774 until 1781, he served in the Continental Congress as a representative from Massachusetts, and he was elected to the convention in Massachusetts in 1787 for ratifying the Constitution. His cousin John Adams was not as rebellious. John believed that everyone should have a fair trial, so he defended the British soldiers who were accused of murdering Crispus Attucks at the Boston Massacre. He was also part of the Second Continental Congress, and one of the 5 people who wrote the Declaration of Independence, which was ratified on July 4, 1776. After the Revolutionary War, John Adams helped write the Treaty of Paris in 1783. He had a wife named Abigail whom he wrote letters to during the war. It's really the only important thing she did during the Revolution. But after that, she became one of the most active first ladies of the government. She liked to encourage women's rights. But John Adams thought it was stupid and he laughed at the idea. Number 4. Thomas Jefferson is considered one of the United States founding fathers. He was the main writer in drafting the Declaration of Independence. He was also the governor of Virginia during the Revolution and minister to France. After the war, he founded the Virginia Committee of Correspondence in 1773, and from 1775 to 1776, he was a delegate to the Second Continental Congress. However, both John Adams and Thomas Jefferson died on the 50th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence. One of John Adams' last phrases was, "Thomas Jefferson still survives," not knowing he died a few hours earlier. How ironic. 5. George Washington. He was the commander of the Continental Army and father of the United States. He crossed a giant river. But honestly, he's just an image of the people. He barely got into politics, he didn't plan the war, he just fought in it. A leader of the military, and he had no political affiliations whatsoever. And he also lost more battles than he had won. However, he did start the 7 Years' War and serve in the Virginia House of Burgesses for 15 years before the Revolution. He was part of the Second Continental Congress, and his leadership during battles helped encourage his army that secured American independence. Number 6. Thomas Paine. He is famous for writing his book on common sense. The book attacked the British for taxing and no representation of colonies in the Parliament at Westminster, but also rallied the colonists for a revolution. His arguments for separation are merely nothing more than plain arguments, simple facts, and common sense. During the Revolutionary War, Thomas Paine volunteered in the Continental Army and continued writing papers on the American crisis. Then after the war, he went to France, wrote some more books, got arrested, then came back to America, realizing everything he had done was simply forgotten, and people saw him as an infidel. 7. King George III. All he wanted to do was to tax the colonies from the debt the colonies put him into from the 7 Years' War. He was a good man. During the war, he was searching for a wife his people would love, and he took his mother's advice on Princess Charlotte of Mecklenburg-Strelitz. Even though he never met her before his wedding day, he promised to love her and be good to her for the rest of his life, and he was. However, the colonists wasn't so happy with him at that time. They started to boycott his goods and buy from other countries, and they threw a tea party as a defiance to his laws. So the king added the Intolerable Acts, which kind of triggered the colonists' unhappiness. Number 8. Mercy Otis Warren. She was a writer during the Revolutionary War. She wrote poems and plays attacking the royal authority in Massachusetts and encouraged colonists to refuse British infringements on colonial rights. She was also very close with Abigail Adams, Martha Washington, and John Winthrop's wife, Hannah Winthrop. She also advised many political leaders such as Samuel Adams, John Hancock, Patrick Henry, Thomas Jefferson, George Washington, and John Adams. Number 9. The Marquis de Lafayette was a very rich and wealthy orphan. He was also married to the king's relative and became one of the most wealthiest men in France. When he came to America, he learned of their struggle and resulted in helping them with the revolution. He was commissioned as Major General by the American Congress because of his high rank in French nobility, and he was a volunteer with patriotic motives. At that time, he wasn't even 20 years old yet, and was already best friends with George Washington. Number 10. James Armistead was given permission to join the Revolutionary
Created using Powtoon.